Hi everyone, good evening. I hope you've been having a good day at work or anything related to college or in general. I hope you guys are having a good day. All right, so let's start, and I'm sure the others will keep joining. Yesterday we started with the writing module, correct? And in the writing module yesterday, I told you that for task 1, it's the activities or the tasks are different for academic and general candidates, and we will be doing it in the same meeting. I will be discussing the same, I will be discussing both on the same platform at the same time, okay? So just a quick recap, the writing module is the third part of your IELTS examination, and it is divided into 2 tasks. The first task, like I just mentioned, is different for academic and general candidates. Academic candidates have a report writing task, and general candidates get a letter to write. Okay. Task 2 remains the same, which is your essay writing. You need to, they will actually ask you to spend only 20 minutes on task 1 and 40 minutes on task 2. And I would also recommend the same. Okay, so the total duration for the writing module is 1 hour, right? Now, we also have minimum word count in both tasks 1 and 2. The minimum word count for task 1 is 150 words, which means you have to write 150 words. 150 to 170 or 180 is good. Whereas in task 2, you have to write 250 words. That's the minimum word count. Anything less than 250, the candidate is going to be penalized. So 250 to 270 or 280 is a good number. All right. Now, there are 4 parameters that the examiner looks at to gauge or to evaluate a candidate's writing skills, English language, and obviously the writing skills. Correct. So the first one is called task achievement or task response, where the examiner checks if the candidate has fulfilled the minimum word count for that particular task. If the paragraphs are distinct, if the letter or report or essay is divided properly into paragraphs, and that too with proper information in each paragraph without any overlap. Okay, and also, has the candidate fulfilled the requirements given in the task? These are the 3 things majorly that they look at in task achievement or task response. Then you have coherence or cohesion. Coherence, as you already know, is structuring your answer in a proper order. Nothing haphazard, nothing irrelevant. Everything is connected to, each sentence is connected to the idea, in the beginning and towards the end. So it needs to be linked properly. And cohesion is using some linkers or linking devices like however, moreover, nevertheless, not only, but also, these kind of terms. Now, the third one and the fourth one, again, you're very aware of this, lexical resource, which is vocabulary. So whatever it is, remember one thing, usage of appropriate words based on the topic also is important. Okay, using appropriate words and using synonyms, using words correctly, that's important. Okay, and then you have grammar or grammatical range and accuracy, where they look at tenses, spellings, punctuation marks, usage of different sentence structures, simple, complex, and compound structures. Okay, now having said this, let's just quickly move on to the next part. Again, I'm going to start, with academic writing. So everybody who is a general candidate, please don't get confused. Okay. And after that, obviously, I will be moving on to general writing. So today we're going to see for both how to structure body paragraphs for academic candidates and general candidates, and how to write a conclusion for general training. Now, why only for general training are we going to look at how to write a conclusion? Because academic candidates, you have report writing as your first task. And in report writing, you just need to summarize whatever data has been given to you. You cannot assume, you cannot make opinions, neither can you conclude. Correct? Now, I'm just going to quickly, go back to whatever we did yesterday and then explain to you once again, and then we'll move on to the body paragraphs. So yesterday we looked at the structure of a report. And what is a report? Nothing but a chart or a diagram that you get. You need to analyze that chart or the diagram, understand the key features, the different aspects given in that chart, and then write your report. Okay. Now, a report always starts with an introduction, followed by an overview, and then your body paragraphs. Okay. What do you need to write in your introduction? First of all, before you start writing, make sure that you analyze the graph, the chart, or the diagram properly. Mark or make a note of all these key aspects that are given, and then start writing the introduction. Now, in the introduction, you basically restructure the question statement that's given to you. Don't copy, please don't do that, but restructure it and use the high-level data given in your chart, high-level data, that is what's there in the y-axis, what's there in the x-axis, the legend, and the the heading. What is the range? Look at all that and add that in your introduction. Do not go ahead and elaborate. Your introduction needs to be anywhere between 1 to 2 words only. Then you move on to writing the overview. In the overview, you will have to look at the overall picture of the chart or the diagram, not just one specific aspect or not just one specific year, but the overall picture. Like I explained to you, in your college or school, your performance, how would your teacher tell your performance, how you are performing in class? By looking at each and every score, not just one particular score, right? So look at that and give an overall picture. How do you do that? You can pick either anything which is striking, anything that stands out. Okay. For instance, in this particular report, we have fish and chips that's declining. Or the popularity or the consumption of fish and chips is decreasing over time. That can be an overview. And how hamburgers is increasing significantly. So anything highest and lowest can be a part of your overview. Do not, once again, remember, do not write any numbers, any year in your overview. That's not correct. So far, so good. All the academic candidates, can you please write in the chat and let me know? Okay. Now let's move on to the body paragraph. Okay. You can write anywhere between 2 to 3 body paragraphs, usually 2 body paragraphs, but again, it depends on the kind of chart or the diagram that you get. Okay. Now, what is it that you need to write in the body paragraph? This is where you will write the statistics, the numbers, you will make comparisons, you will pick up the main features. All right. And how do you segregate, or how do you, what do you put exactly? What information do you put in each body paragraph? So anything which is following a similar trend, put that in one body paragraph. Divide your body paragraphs based on what aspects or what elements are following a similar trend. In this case, pizza and fish and chips, from 1975, the consumption is increasing. Okay, they're following the same pattern. When I say trend, I mean pattern. Okay, so I'm going to put these 2 aspects, pizza and hamburgers, in one body paragraph, and fish and chips is following a completely opposite trend. So I'm going to put this in another body paragraph. That's how I'm going to segregate the body paragraph. Is it clear? And please remember, you will have to write numbers here. You will have to write data, otherwise your score will come down drastically. Okay, so let me just show you how to write a body paragraph. But before that, once again, let's just analyze the chart. Look at the main features before you write the body paragraph. Once again, look at the main features. In fish and chips, I know for a fact that it used to be consumed 100 times a year, slight fluctuation. And in 1985, just around 90 to 100 times a year. And then it is just declining and it finishes at, finishes at less than 40 times a year. Okay, lowest consumed fast food in 2000, in the year 2000. These are the main features. I'm not writing for each and every year. I am only going to pick up the main features. Similarly, if you look at pizza, pizza obviously did not gain popularity as fast as hamburgers. It is quite slow. But if you notice, this was the least consumed, one of the least consumed fast foods in 1975. It is increasing slowly, and in 1990, it crosses the consumption of fish and chips. And from 1995 to 2000, for that 5 years, it is stagnant and being consumed around 80 to 90 times a year. Hamburgers also follows a similar trend. Only difference, it has increased significantly or gained popularity drastically, all right? And definitely faster than pizza. In 1985, it overtakes the consumption of fish and chips. And then in the year 2000, it is the highest consumed fast food. And it's eaten 100 times a year. And if you notice, fish and chips was eaten 100 times a year in 1975, and hamburgers was eaten 100 times a year in 2000. So you can make this comparison also. All right, are you guys getting my point? I'm not writing for each and every year. I've only picked up the important points and I'm only going to write about that. And here I will write how many times they were, each fast food was consumed and in what year. Jeshma, Anirudh and other academic candidates, is it clear? Okay. Now, let's quickly run through the body paragraph, body paragraph 1. So in body paragraph, like I said, you either put fish and chips in the first body paragraph or the second body paragraph, but because it's following a different pattern, that is going to be written separately. Okay. So what have I done? I have mentioned very clearly that in 1975, the most popular fast food among teenagers was fish and chips, and was consumed 100 times a year. Mentioned the year and the number of times it was consumed. With a slight drop over the next 5 years, look at this, over the next 5 years, there's a slight drop. It again gained some popularity and was eaten around 90 to 100 times a year. Now, I don't know exactly if it was eaten around 90 times a year. I know it's somewhere around 90 to 100 times a year, so I've mentioned it like that. The numbers are not given here, so I'm not sure, okay? But I know it's somewhere around 90 times, 100 times, 95 times a year, okay? However, after 1985, there was a consistent drop in the number of times this fast food was consumed. Clearly, I'm writing whatever is given in the chart only, okay? In 2000, it was the least preferred food and was eaten less than half the number of times as opposed to 1975. Now look at this. I've used as opposed to, which means I'm comparing the number of times fish and chips was eaten in 2000 to the number of times fish and chips was eaten in 1975. And I've said it was eaten less than half the number of times as opposed to or in contrast to 1975. Clear? So within that same thing, I've made comparison because that was essential. Getting my point, Anirudh and Jeshma? So what are we doing here? We are just picking up the important aspects and writing it. We are not assuming, we are not making any opinion. Okay. Now let's look at the second body paragraph. In the second body paragraph, I'm going to talk about both hamburgers and fish and chips. Okay. Hamburgers and pizza in 1975 were not in demand like fish and chips. Obviously, clearly, correct? Because this was somewhere people probably consumed it, or teenagers in 1975 consumed it somewhere around 5 times a year, less than 5 times a year. And here, fish and chips was consumed 100 times a year. Okay, so they were eaten around 5 times a year. Again, I'm not telling you they were eaten 5 times a year for sure, because I don't know. Okay, it is around 5 times a year. However, then on, both fast food gained immense popularity over the years. Again, very clearly we can see it in the chart. I have not made up any story. Though the rate of consumption of pizza was slightly slower than hamburgers, it overtook the consumption of fish and chips in the year 1990. This is an important point because it's crossing the number of times fish and chips was being consumed in the year 1990. Okay. After 5 years, until 2000, the graph remained steady and Australian teenagers consumed it at over 80 times a year. Clearly, because just over 80 times a year. Meanwhile, look at the word I've used, meanwhile. Okay, so at the same time, hamburgers gained significant popularity and crossed the consumption of fish and chips a few years earlier. Now, we also know that because the graph is very evidently telling us that. Okay, from 1995, across the consumption of fish and chips a few years earlier than pizza. From 1995 to 2000, it was the most popular and in-demand fast food with no fluctuation at all. And what am I saying? In 2000, it was consumed 100 times, the same as fish and chips in 1975. So I've compared what? It was in 2000, hamburgers was consumed 100 times, and that was the same number of times fish and chips was consumed in 1975. This is a significant aspect because it's literally the same number. Okay, so I am making that comparison. So anytime you get a graph, a pie chart, a diagram, anything, doesn't matter, look and observe all the key features and make comparisons where it is relevant. And don't just write numbers just for the sake of it. Look at how the numbers also are. For example, in terms of fish and chips, I said that it was consumed less than half the number of times as opposed to 1975. Correct? So it was literally less than 40 times a year. And that's what I've said, but I've written it in a different way. So you need to use that. You need to make comparisons wherever required. It is not just writing it as it is also making relevant comparisons and picking up the relevant data. Is it clear? Jeshma and Anirudh and the other academic candidates? Okay. Any doubts, any questions, both of you? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys an activity to do. I'll obviously put you both in a separate breakout room. And remember, you have to do this activity individually. Let me just show you what the activity is before I share it. Okay. Yeah, I hope you're able to see the screen. So this is a bar chart. Before you start, please read the question properly, analyze the bar chart properly, and I've written a few key pointers. The reason this is given to you here is because I don't want you to get confused while writing. So whatever I have explained to you so far is actually written in this particular activity. So go through all this properly and accordingly write your report. Now, apart from that, I've also given you a few linking words that you can use. Okay, like moreover, additionally, particularly, or on the other hand, meanwhile. So these are some linking words that you can use wherever it is required. Don't use it just for the sake of it again. And some vocabulary words that you can use. Instead of always saying the consumption decreased or the consumption increased, you can use a few other different words. Is it clear? So all this is present in this particular activity. Go through it and then write down an introduction, overview, and the body paragraphs. Is it clear? And here, I've also told you how you can segregate your body paragraph. Okay, I've written it as an example here. You can use the same technique, but read it properly, understand it, and write your report. Clear, guys? Jeshma and Anirudh? Okay, I'm going to share this activity on the group and then put you guys in a breakout room. Both of you, please join the breakout room and till I don't get you out, just be there and finish your activity. All right. Okay, all the general candidates, all the general training candidates, please now focus, because now we are going to talk about letter writing. All right, all clear? Just give me a thumbs up so I know if all of you are here. All good? Yes? Excellent. Lovely. Brilliant. Okay. So now, again, a quick recap. Yesterday, we learned that there are three types of letters, three letter types: formal, semi-formal, and informal. When is it a formal letter, or what kind of topic makes it a formal letter? When you're writing to somebody you don't know. Okay, like an insurance manager, a restaurant manager, e-commerce company, whatever, you don't know the person. Semi-formal letter is when you're writing to an acquaintance. You know the person, but you're not friends as such with them. You just are aware that this person is there. For example, your landlord or landlady, the society president, your neighbor. Okay, so all this comes under the semi-formal category. Or maybe, let's say, a friend's cousin. You have to write a letter to your friend's cousin. You don't know this cousin, but because it's your friend's cousin, you're just an acquaintance. So that falls under the semi-formal category. And informal is when you're writing a letter to your friend, your parents, your siblings, your cousins, whoever. Okay, and for each kind of letter, we have a specific salutation or greetings. Okay, when you write a formal letter, you have to start off by writing "Dear Sir" or "Madam" and close it by writing "Yours faithfully." Always, don't change this. Keep this as it is. You have to memorize it as it is. If you're writing a semi-formal letter, then you write "Dear Mr., Miss, or Mrs., whatever, and the last name, and close it by writing "Yours sincerely." An informal letter, obviously first name basis, so "Dear" and the person's first name, and close it by writing "Regards." Okay. Remember, in letter writing, we do not write any address at all. We do not write any subject line, no matter what type of letter it is, and no references either. You directly start off with the greetings or the salutation and write the content. Okay. Yesterday, we learned how to write an introduction for these three letter types, correct? So if you're writing a formal letter, no matter what type of letter it is, remember, the introduction has to contain the purpose. Why is it that you're writing a letter to this particular person? That has to be there. all right? But there are a few changes depending on the letter type. So if it is a formal letter, the first line will be an introduction, who you are, and then the purpose. Semi-formal letter, again, you can give a reference as to who exactly you are. Maybe you can say, I am Lavanya Muralidhar, your neighbor, or I'm Lavanya Muralidhar, your tenant from flat number 302, whatever, and the purpose. And for the informal letter, you have to write some greetings. Okay, you have to greet. I hope you're doing well. I was very excited. I'm very excited to learn that you've got promoted, and then write the purpose. All right. So purpose has to be there. The reason for writing the letter has to be there in the introduction. But remember, another thing that I noticed in many home assignment, yesterday's assignment, was you are explaining everything in the introduction itself. I told you this yesterday also, that the purpose needs to be just in one statement, one line. Don't explain anything. Just tell, why are you writing the letter? I'm writing this letter to notify you or that, or I'm writing this letter to inform you that I will be moving into the apartment next week. Or I am writing this letter to bring to your notice that there is no, to bring to your notice the unavailability of a cafe in the organization. Don't write anything else other than one statement which is supposed to be your purpose. Is it clear so far? And Aparna, Stency, Dr. Rakshanda, Nidin, Leenu, Vinod. Yeah? Okay. So keep this in mind, because what I noticed is everybody is writing extra bits of information which will just pull your task achievement down. Okay. Now, today we are going to learn how to write the body paragraphs and conclusion. Okay. So before we do that, let us quickly take a look at this question. It says, last week you lost your luggage while traveling on holiday. Okay, so this is what has happened. Luckily, you have travel insurance. Write a letter to the manager of the insurance company. So what do you have to do? You have to write a letter to the manager of the insurance company. So this becomes a formal letter. I don't know this person. I'm just going to write the letter to the insurance company. So it's a formal letter. Okay. Now, why am I writing this letter? To inform them that, hey, I want to claim my insurance and because I've lost my luggage. So that's going to be in my introduction. So let's take a look at that. So look at the introduction, all right? It says, dear sir or madam, because it's a formal letter, I've given the name of the person. I'm Anita Singh and I'm writing to file an insurance claim for the luggage that was lost during my holiday last week. So what have I said? I've clearly written the purpose. I said I want to file an insurance claim. Why? Because luggage was lost during my holiday last week. And where did I pick it up from? From the topic given here. Correct? I have not written anything extra in this. I have simply said I want to file an insurance claim because of so and so reason. This is my purpose. Introduction is done. Now, to write the body paragraphs, we need to just first look at these 3 bullet points. So what all do I need to mention in the letter? Describe the characteristics of what you lost. So I lost some luggage. I need to talk about that luggage and explain how it looked. Explain how you lost it. And then tell the insurance company what you need from them. So the last bullet point usually will be asking you to request something, asking you to suggest something always. Okay. So how do you start writing the body paragraph? You have 3 bullet points here, and each bullet point corresponds to 1 body paragraph. So in my first body paragraph, I'm only going to describe the characteristics of the luggage. Okay. Let me show you how. It says, describe the characteristics of what you lost. The luggage is a blue, medium-sized Samsonite and has ridges on the body of the luggage. It's a blue Samsonite. It also has 3 stickers on one side of the box and a big scratch near the zipper. So I've given extra bits of information about how the luggage looks. Okay, about how the luggage looks like. It contains my clothes and some magazines. Unfortunately, it does not have a luggage tag with contact information on it. Okay, so what have I said in this? I've told you or shown, given an explanation of how the luggage looks like. So I've said, described it completely by telling you it's a blue medium-sized Samsonite, has ridges on the body, 3 stickers on one side, scratch near the zipper, does not have any luggage tag. Okay, so this is my first body paragraph. And what is it? It's the first bullet point given in the topic itself. I have not written anything extra. I have not written how I lost it here because that's going to be a part of my second body paragraph. Are you guys with me? Rana, Nidin, Rakshanda, Prashanti. Any doubts, any questions? If everything's clear, you can just say no questions or no doubts. Okay, great. So my first body paragraph is the first bullet point, and this is how you should also write your letter, no matter what type of letter it is. Okay. The second body paragraph is going to be obviously my second bullet point. Explain how you lost it. So here it says, hold on please. Although I'm not sure how the luggage was misplaced, I believe that the airline might have placed it on a different flight. I did not find, and how am I saying that? How am I saying that the airline placed it on a different flight? Probably. I'm not claiming, I'm saying probably. I've also given a reason for that. I did not find my luggage when I went to collect it at the baggage claim area. I have been in touch with the airline and they are certain that this is the most probable scenario. So I have told you that I'm not sure how I lost it. I did not say I lost it in a cafe or I lost it on the flight or whatever. I said, I'm not sure, but this is what I'm thinking could have happened. Because when I went to the baggage claim, I did not see it. And then I contacted the airline staff and they said that this also could be a probable scenario. So I have just explained that. And I've also given a reason for whatever information I'm sharing here. Okay. And if you notice, look at the tone of the letter. Even though I'm talking about my luggage, my personal belongings, even though I'm telling you what exactly I think could have happened, the language is very formal, very business-like. Are you all getting my point here? Any doubts, any questions, or all clear so far? Clear, not clear? Any questions? Okay, all right. Okay, many a times when you click the thumbs up, I really can't see it all the time, okay? So it's better if you guys type it in the chat. Okay, now, the third bullet point is not yet over, which is tell the insurance company what you need from them. So this becomes my third bullet point, my third body paragraph, okay? This is my third body paragraph. And it says, I have to suggest something. I have to tell them what I need, either a suggestion or what is it that I require. Before my journey, I had taken a travel insurance with your company. And based on the information, lost luggage is covered. So I'm giving them this information also, that whatever insurance I took, if I happen to lose my luggage, I can cover the cost of it. Therefore, I have attached the insurance claim, and I would appreciate if your company can review the value of the luggage and process the claim at the earliest. So what do I want them to do? I have told them, I've given them an information that, hey, I actually have travel insurance, and whatever contract I had signed, whatever insurance I took, the lost luggage is covered. So what have I done? I've attached the insurance claim, and I want you or your company to look at it, understand the value of the luggage, and process the claim at the earliest. So I have told them what I want them to do. I have not left it hanging. I have not said, please do the needful. I've told them exactly what I want them to do. Okay. Again, make sure the language you use is polite. Always, no matter what type of letter it is. Okay. Now that I've finished writing an introduction, my body paragraphs are also over because I've exhausted all the 3 bullet points. I have to close it. So conclusion is usually just 1 line. Nothing more than that. Conclusion is very simple. The ending is very simple. I've already told what I want, what has happened. I've explained the scenario. I've said what I want the company to do. Now I'm just going to end it by saying, if you need something, let me know. So please let me know if you need any information. And a general conclusion that we usually write every time would be, I'm looking forward to your response at the earliest. That's it. That's all. My conclusion is over. It's not a big Herculean task to write a conclusion. And then I sign off by saying yours faithfully and full name. Clear? Have you guys understood the structure of a letter and how to frame your answers? Okay. If it is completely clear, I'm going to obviously, I'll give you guys a minute. If you have any questions, you can type it in the chat. Otherwise, I will share an activity with you and make you do that in class. Okay, let me share the activity on the screen and I will explain to you, after which I'll put you guys in breakout rooms. Again, this is an individual activity, guys. I want you to do it on your own. And I want you to do it in class because just like yesterday, I will ask you to share it with me. I will look at it, correct it, and give you a feedback. Okay. So here the topic is, in addition to your full-time job, you are taking a 15-hour computer science course. So you're already working, but apart from that, you're taking a 15-hour computer science course. You now find that you cannot continue with the course. Who do you have to write a letter to? The course tutor, an acquaintance. This will not be a formal letter. It's writing to somebody you know. Okay. And also, like I told you, it's given here. In your letter, describe your schedule and situation, your office or your full-time job schedule and your situation. Explain why you cannot continue the course and say what action you would like to take. All right. So you first write an introduction where you say who you are and you're a part of the computer course. Why are you writing this letter? Okay, I'm writing this letter maybe to bring to your notice or maybe to inform you that I may not be able to attend the course further or physically come to the program or whatever. And then you start writing the body paragraph. First body paragraph, explain. Remember, 1 line will not work. You have to write 150 words. Describe the situation, explain the situation. Second body paragraph, explain why you cannot continue the course. And third would be your final body paragraph, what action you would like the organization and the tutor to take. It says, write at least 150 words. You do not need to write any addresses and begin your letter as follows, dear Miss and dash. So this is a semi-format. Yes, so I'm just going to do a quick recap of whatever we did today. For the academic candidates, we understood again what a report writing is, how to write the introduction and overview, and majorly focused on how to write the body paragraphs. All right. In your body paragraph, please always include the main features, especially the data like the numbers, the years, whatever is given, and especially of the most significant aspects, because that is what's going to fetch you marks. Okay. Apart from the other parameters, writing data is going to fetch you marks, and that's what report writing is all about. Okay, when you're writing your body paragraphs, make sure you combine or put together similar looking or similar following trends that will also enhance the way you write. Okay, you enhance your report. Now, general candidates, you now know the difference between formal, semi-formal, and informal letters. Today, we obviously ran through how to write an introduction, but apart from that, we also understood how to write the body paragraphs. Every bullet point corresponds to one body paragraph, and you have to elaborate it. Make sure in the introduction, you don't give over explanation, because in the body paragraph, you have to do that. And then conclusion is just one statement where, you tell the recipient that you're looking for a response at the earliest, or based on the question, you write one line conclusion and close your letter. All right. Now, remember one thing, next time or whenever you practice by yourself, make sure you set the timer to 20 minutes and then do this task, which includes, for both academic and general, which includes analyzing the question, understanding the question, and then writing it. Is it clear? Or typing it, whatever, depending on whether you're taking paper-based or computer-based test again. Is it clear?